What's going on, Charles Botensten? So there's a post below that for a while I've been thinking about this, which is schooling, the traditional model. I actually heard this many years ago by Seth Godin, and I never questioned it. I never questioned schools. I never questioned anything, if it was good, if it was bad, if there was a reason to have them. I never questioned it. It's one of those things that you just live with. You're like, error. It's just, you just accept it. It's just that everyone has accepted it, so then you have accepted it. And ironically enough, since probably 2007, 2008, when entrepreneurship really was at the beginning stages, you know, you had Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Maybe, I think Twitter was around, Instagram was not. However, entrepreneurship, all these small companies that were rising and getting billions of dollars in funding or in value, in valuations, and then people are saying, like, is that even worth it because we have the internet? So then Seth Godin, I saw him talk about it, and he goes, schooling was actually a brilliant idea. It was for the factory workers because people started moving from the farms way long ago, late 1800s, early 1900s. So people started moving from during the Industrial Revolution. Is that people started moving from the farms to cities. And it was the first time there was an explosion in cities because that's where the opportunities were. You can maximize your resources. That's where the manufacturing and the jobs were. So people were moving to the cities, but the thing was people weren't ready for the cities. They're used to farming. So I don't know who actually came along with it. Obviously, schooling's been around, but they came along with it and they came up with a curriculum, a traditional just way to do things, which is sit in your seat all day, study this book, take this test. When you graduate, you get a job and you stay there for 50, 60 years. And it was amazing because there was no moving around. Like, people are like, well, I don't know what to do, or they're complaining about anything. I'm like, put your ass 100 years ago. If your dad was a blacksmith, you were a blacksmith. If your dad was a printer, you were a printer. It's like there was no like deviating away. It was like you took over your father's business or you went west. It was like, and then maybe survived, you maybe did not survive. So the traditional schooling model was amazing because Model T Ford, the assembly line, you literally every single day just went to work and you put this screw in the same place on the same wheel on a different car. So you'd have to put this widget on this car and that was it. And then you did that every single day. And it was perfect, the school model, the business model, and that's what it was. And then we started doing customization, then we started expanding, and then the Industrial Revolution started becoming, well, different cars, and then advancing cars, and you know, the size and the scope. So it wasn't just the Model T, then there was other models, and then there were air conditioning, power windows, and then you get to the internet, which is today, and it's like, we're so globally connected. Think of this. The reason that things started expanding was because the car allowed us. Then when the air travel became a little bit more affordable in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was still really expensive. Most people did not travel. That opened it up even more. And now the internet, we're so globally connected that you don't even need, if you're really good at something, you can get your product across or your service across without schooling at all. Think of all the teenagers or even younger. It's like people are like, you know, they said they need money, but to start a website, it's $12 to buy a domain name. You can do free hosting at WordPress. You could blog. As long as your service, as long as your product is superior, it's gonna win. It's gonna win. They don't care how old you are. Look at the young guys that are just coming up through the ranks and making millions and millions of dollars starting multiple companies is because their product is superior. It's disrupting everyone else. So everyone else either needs to join or leave. And essentially, the school model is way behind. The school model has not caught up that there's YouTube videos about trigonometry, about history. There's incredible documentaries on the History Channel about the story of us, about the men who built America. These are two incredibly highly acclaimed series. I've seen them both and they're amazing. I learned more in those video series than I did all of high school history. I learned more because it wasn't for me. So we'll just get into why the school model is archaic. The school model is archaic because you have the local and this is nothing against the teachers. This is against the system that has not moved with the times. It's like, you know what it is? It's like government. Government's like, mail in a check, we'll receive it, we'll cash it. I'm like, can I just give you my bank number and then you could just take it out electronically? Just auto take out? Like, come on. Like, what do you mean, like, I have to mail you a check? So fill out the paperwork online. Like, there's a form. How about you give me an account, a username and an account like the rest of the world? So it's the same thing with, and the reason I'm saying it's not against the teachers, number one, is that I come from a family of teachers. There's 6 teachers in my family, and they're all different teachers. You know, gym teacher, my mom was a computer teacher, my cousins were English, and I don't know what the other ones are, but essentially they're teaching in an archaic model where students literally go to school to read a textbook by people that probably didn't even start a business or have ever marketed a product, yet they're learning about marketing. They're learning about starting a business, about entrepreneurship by teachers that have never started a business, by authors in a textbook who probably have never started a business. I remember being at school in college and first remembering this was like 06, 07, and I'm just like, this doesn't even make sense. I'm like, this type of marketing is this is like when the internet was in its, it was popular, but it wasn't, you know, where it is right now because we didn't have the iPhone or anything else. However, I just remember looking at the internet, I'm like, this is where everything's gonna be. You know, like everything. Classified ads, Craigslist was already really popular. I'm like, this is where it's gonna be. Yet, in the marketing book, it was telling these park benches, you're gonna have signs. I'm like, no, it's not. That's, as Gary Vaynerchuk is talking about now, obviously the attention. So number one is the textbooks are not by people that may have actually started a business. The people that have started a business are the business owners who go and talk or write books. That's the people that should be teaching the classes. The Gary Vaynerchuks, the Richard Bransons, you know, the late Steve Jobs. You know, these people that actually did something, that actually managed. Peter Drucker, who managed people and was the forefather of management, of business management. It's like those should be the teachers. The people that have read textbooks and then have just regurgitated things in textbooks without actually saying, okay, you know what? Start with why. Simon Sinek, that should be in every single textbook. Personal finance should be taught in schools because that's massive. Credit, your credit, saving money, IRAs. Like, how is this not being taught? This is like negotiating. Public speaking was only 1 semester of a course. Influencing, selling, you know, none of these things were taught. Trigonometry. It's like, what? I'm sorry, trigonometry? Okay, I have never used trigonometry. The thing is, I'm gonna get to it. So number one is the system and how it's taught is by teachers in that local school district. So in other words, I grew up on Long Island. I graduated, my middle school was like, I don't know, 125 people, and then I went to a big high school, which was probably 400, 500 kids in my class. And, you know, obviously, yes, I know there's bigger high schools out there. Someone's like, well, I graduated with 1,200. All right, cool, dude. So I went to a larger high school, and I just remember thinking that this was the only teacher teaching this subject to everyone that was coming through. Like, who's to say he was the best one? And these are our children. This is you guys. This is me. This is, I don't have any kids, but like, you want the best teacher teaching that subject. So how do you get the best teacher teaching that subject? Is you scout them out, and they already are producing great content either through writing, like Simon Sinek on Starting With Why, or the internet through videos. Or they're producing series on how to actually learn about history. You should be learning about history by the people that are the best at learning, that know the most about history or trigonometry or social studies, math, science, English, all these, instead of just a textbook by one person. It's like, get a global perspective by the best person. So that's really what it comes down to is, number one is that we don't focus on our strengths. My strength was not math. My strength certainly was far from science. However, what I've noticed is that I love science now, math not so much, but that wasn't my strengths. My strengths were talking with people. I loved acting, I loved sports and things like that. So what you need to do, there's a Jim Collins, I think it's Jim Collins, wrote Good to Great. So good to great, in there, it means what's the difference between a good company and a great company? What's the difference between someone that just glides along through their existence and someone that continuously rises and beats market expectations? What is the difference? So he noticed there's a couple core principles. People, they focus on their strengths. So you know what he did, Jim Collins? He took that book, he inserted those principles into a Texas school district, and he told the kids that, what do you like to do? And then he divided the kids up through 1 year, and he did this for multiple ages, and he put all those kids together. He put the people that loved science together, the people that loved engineering, the people that loved computer science, acting, producing, video, audio, sports, blah, blah, blah. And you know what's amazing? Think about this. Just think about what that means. That means all the people that love social studies are in a classroom, instead of one person that loves social studies, one that doesn't, and the other one hates it. That's all going to bleed across each other, and it's going to meet mediocrity. Because you're going to have this, which the average comes out to that. But if you have everyone like this across the board, that breeds, you're going to have the same nomenclature, you're going to push ideas, you're going to question ideas, you're going to move forward, you're going to be more comfortable, you're not going to be judged. The biggest thing with me, the reason I didn't like math, I wanted to figure it out, it's just I felt like an idiot if I asked questions, all right? I felt judged because someone that absolutely loved math was on such a high level, but if I was in a class of, say, videography, I would have picked it up immediately. I would have loved it. Imagine that. You actually embrace what the child wants to do. What the child wants to do. So I hope schooling goes to this, which is embrace the strengths, bring on the best environment. The best environment, this is what I imagine, is that you have a huge board, like where it's a live teacher, or it's even a video of a teacher. You could even have, VR glasses. You take it off, you're still in the environment because you need the socialization of the people. You need to bounce ideas off each other. You got to learn from different perspectives. You take off the goggles and then you discuss it with the like-minded people around you, whether that's science or whatever class you're in, and then you go do something. You go do something, there's an action step where you have to, and I know that's already in the schools, which is there's a project or there's a I don't know, a science fair. However, imagine that is all the time by people that are like-minded. That's the way that schooling should be. And then you're on your computer, I have it right here. You're on your computer and you're just literally typing out questions while other people are watching it and they can answer live. And you can ask whatever question you want. You don't have the embarrassment of saying, I don't know what you're talking about, which was me. So I know this is a really long video. There's a lot of benefits to, I'll just actually talk about this real quick. I know people are like, dude, shut up and just end the video. But the reason that it hasn't changed, number one, is the teachers union. So the teachers union is an archaic organization. Any union is an archaic organization. It was necessary when they were formed because there was no workers' comp. There was nothing that was for the workers. It was always longer hours, less pay, no benefits, no maternity leave, no vacation, no time off. And then they said, then the unions came in like, we need to protect the workers. However, today, there's so many worker laws that it's like the opposite. Like you can't fire someone unless you have like a year's worth of things you've been late. You underperformed, you were late again, your deadline for your project was late, blah, 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 blah. I know a lot of employers that they have to get a year's worth of things before they actually fire someone. It's the same thing with the teachers union. My mom used to be a United Federation of Teachers, which is the UFT, which is New York City. I think that's maybe more than New York City, but she'd come home and they're like, it's not benefiting the students. It's all about the unions lining their pocket. It's all about them. It's not about the kids. If it was about the kids, they wouldn't be fighting charter schools and helping these kids from the inner city get out of the inner city. Imagine this, that the inner city and schools that don't have the money of, say, a prestigious or a private school, imagine those kids getting the exact same curriculum, the exact same content as, say, people in the suburbs. You know, it's like, imagine me in the suburbs getting something from a $40,000, $50,000 private school, the same curriculum. Imagine that, you know, like where we would go with education. And oh, by the way, it's less expensive because you're watching the video, you already have your thing, your computer, and you don't need to keep on purchasing these expensive textbooks, which we couldn't afford. Like, it just makes sense. So number one is the unions don't like it. Number two is that people don't like change. You know, I could spend hours about this, but people just don't like change. They don't like the change. They don't like, they like the law of familiarity. They like the way they wake up, when they wake up, how they wake up, what they do after they wake up. They go on their phone, or they snooze their alarm, or they check social media, they check their email, they're still in bed, then an hour later they get out of bed, they have coffee. People like that. And it's the same thing with schooling, because schooling is, it's like in our blood. It's like ingrained in us as human nature. However, there are some mavericks that are talking about it. Peter Thiel, the VC guy out west, who's a multi-billionaire. He invested in Facebook and PayPal and Washington Post. He's one of the top, most respected guys in Silicon Valley. He's starting with Peter Diamandis. He's also against schooling. Peter Diamandis, look him up. He wrote Bold and another book. Gary Vaynerchuk here in New York. Seth Godin. These are guys that have a lot of influence. They're in the private sector. That's the thing. They're not in the public sector. I'm not really a public sector fan. I just think there's not as much innovation in it. So anyway, I have a post that's a lot easier to actually understand, which is below. And obviously subscribe to the videos. This is going to be maybe a little controversial. I hope some kind of discussion begins, because this needs to happen. This is for the people like myself that were not encouraged, that I thought I was an idiot because I was failing classes, when in fact I was going to classes that I just had no interest in. I had no interest in it. If you put a kid that loves acting in an acting class, awesome, because he's going to succeed and he's going to become the best freaking actor there is. So have an awesome day. Have an awesome day. Subscribe to the video. Check the links below, because I have, obviously, they go to the blog post that I talk about it. I also have a podcast. Go check that out as well. Have an awesome day. Talk to you guys soon.